This clip went I found on Twitter, and I think it's really, really interesting. This is from 3 years ago during the Labour leadership election, right? It's a panel on Novara Media, which includes Andrew Fisher, Michael Walker, and then Sienna Rodgers of Labour List. Now, Sienna Rodgers, whilst commenting on internal Labour stuff, it's clear that she has her feelers out for the kind of things that the party is doing internally. And she makes some points about Keir Starmer during this discussion that are incredibly eye-opening, and I cannot believe that she was so prescient of things that she was saying. Let's take a look.
I think, and I kind of want us to talk about what Keir Starmer's weaknesses might be, just in the sense of, I mean, this links into it though, in the sense of, does anyone have a chance of beating him, even though he's far away the front runner? And I suppose one reason why I think the Brexit thing isn't going to bring him down is, one, that the policy he was promoting was popular within the party, but two, he was never a wrecker. He was never perceived as a wrecker. So when talking about Brexit on television or whatever, he tended to seem like he was trying to justify what was the party position, which was quite different to even Emily Thornberry at times. So Emily Thornberry, when I remember sort of, it was around conference time, she was on Robert Peston sort of saying, oh, I don't really like the party policy, obviously.
And she put out that letter as well that was clearly kind of with an eye on the leadership contest and that sort of thing.
But it fails, doesn't it? Because people don't like people who are disloyal to the Labour Party.
Yeah, I mean, that is the sort of most forward-thinking thing that Keir Starmer did, is basically keep quiet, keep his head down. And it pissed off a lot of people on the right of the party, but it was clearly the right strategy. And some people close to him were, defending him, being like, no, there's a reason that he's keeping quiet about all of this stuff,
So do you think it was a calculated...
Oh, completely. Everything about Keir's trajectory is calculated, I think.
For the past 3-4 years?
Decades.
Oh, wow. So you think the whole...
I mean, fucking, she said it, right? She's saying it. This was literally during the leadership election. And Novara did good coverage over the kind of people managing Keir Starmer's leadership election, including Owen Smith, the person who was literally being managed by the right of the party to try and oust Corbyn in 2016, where they failed miserably, and Corbyn got an even higher percentage of the vote in 2016 than they did in 2015. But his campaign was being managed by the Labour right from the start. So there was always kind of this understanding that we knew during the leadership election that he was just saying whatever it took to try and make sure that he actually won the leadership election. There was a triangulation going on that was going to be completely abandoned when he theoretically could have won when he theoretically was going to win at that point in time. So for Sienna Rodgers to be out here going, it's all calculated. Right? It's never, it's all a decade-long plan for him to try and get into the position at the moment. But his eye on the job, whilst being in the shadow cabinet, being a Labour MP, was always to just toe the party line at the time, just keep his head down, to then later on, when something comes to a head, he then uses that to be able to become the leader of the party and to change it into what he believes it should be, which is new fucking neoliberal garbage, to be honest.
The whole thing has been leading to him.
I think so.
How obviously everyone is now having a debate about how left or right wing he is. Where do you stand on this?
He's not left wing. No.
You don't think he's at all left wing?
No, I don't.
So
I find it genuinely unbelievable and a huge failing of the Labour left and just everything that people are actually swallowing this narrative of, he really wants to be more left wing secretly, but he's being held back because he's trying to build this broad coalition or whatever. I think that's absolutely laughable. You only need to look at what.
I mean, I will always still feel sympathy for the people who were hoodwinked by Keir Starmer's lies during the leadership election. I'll always feel sympathy for these people. I'm not going to hold anything against them that they vote for the guy that's destroying progressive politics in this country, right? We all make mistakes. We all get lied to. It's easy to make mistakes when you're not being given the correct information. But there were clearly people on the inside of the Labour Party, people who are very in tune with the kind of discussions that are going on, like Sienna Rodgers, for example, who knew this from the start. They knew already that it was all lies, that it was all just posturing, that it was all lip service that he was paying to try and win the election. He was always going to U-turn from that, and we now know that was absolutely the case. What's been said by Margaret Hodge, what's been said by Tim Stanley from The Telegraph as well, we all knew this was happening.
What he's like in his own constituency, Labour Party, to know that he's on the right of the party.
Which is, go on, can you talk about how he's in the...
In the Homans of Pancras, how an MP behaves in terms of, there's, deep factionalism in like the Camden CLPs. And you know, when they turn up for a vote and they vote a certain way, and you know the kind of he actually keeps out of a lot of the fights, but the right know in that CLP that when they need a vote, they will rely on Keir and his wife to come in and sort of quietly vote for them and whatever.
I heard even for a by-election on a chair of a local branch, so even on sort of like minor moments.
Yeah.
What faction, if he was being honest, what faction do you think he'd be in the Labour Party?
I don't know.
Progress, Labour First, Open Labour, Momentum?
You know, actually, I don't think he belongs to any of them. It's even a bit unfair to say he's with the right of the party. I just think that that's the way he's behaved. I think he is apolitical. I think he lacks politics. And that's the reason that members should be a bit wary.
Oh, you should run.
That's when because I see a lot of this discourse on Twitter. I'm talking about, well, Keir Starmer is right-wing. He always believes in this right-wing stuff, and that's why it was all a bunch of lies, because he knew that he wanted to be able to hoodwink people to input the right-wing policy that he so desperately loves, when really and truly, he knows nothing about politics, he knows nothing about economics, he knows nothing about anything, right? He had to explain the basis of economics by his handlers on the Labour right when he became the leader. He just cares about power. He cares about power, and he'll say whatever it takes to be able to gain power, and he'll do whatever he thinks is the most beneficial on the path to power, regardless of any kind of moral or kind of political or kind of ideological scruples that he may or may not have. None of that is relevant. He is just somebody who wants power for power's sake, and he will do and say whatever it takes to get there. And of course, if you're going to ally with a group of the party that's going to be able to get you power, it's going to be the Labour right who have the backing of the media, who have the backing of the corporations, who have the backing of the billionaires, who have the backing of, the kind of establishment within Labour HQ that were put there specifically to ensure they had maintained de facto power in the party during the Tony Blair administration. And so obviously, if Keir wants to maintain power, of course, you can cozy up to people who have the power to be able to gift him. Simple as that.
You should run all the other campaigns. That was a good job on Keir Starmer.
Oh shit, they hate me already. I'll bitch about the other ones as well.
Yeah. What do you make of Keir Starmer? And if you were, I suppose, if you were campaigning against him, if you were trying to catch up with the front.
What's interesting is obviously Michael Walker in that bit that we just watched said, well, does he belong to Progress or Open Labour, whatever it might be? And then, no speculation, whatever it might be. And then Sienna says, well, he's just apolitical. And then you look at it and they say, okay, well, if he wants to maintain power and he wants to be able to do whatever it takes to gain power, and as I said, you'll then ally with the people who have the power, who have the backing. He's ended up doing a speech for Progress where he talks about why he is the real party of conservatism. If that's what you need to know about Keir Starmer's desire to maintain power indefinitely and to ally himself with the most heinous people in the party to be able to get there, I don't know what else to tell you.
Front runner, what would you pin on him?
Okay, so just to pick up on that, because I don't know, I haven't been involved in the CLP. I've worked with him, when he's been on the front bench. Obviously, when we did the talks with May's government at the time, we worked very closely on that. So he's very competent. He's very professional. All the things that come across anyway. And I think he has been fairly decent since 2016. Obviously, that 10-year plan was a bit of a blip, the Owen Smith thing. He probably regrets that part. Yeah. But he probably would admit that himself, I suspect, now. But, I think he is fairly decent. I think he probably does go with the kind of consensus of where the balance of power is in the CLP. Most MPs do, in frankness. There's very few who don't, in my experience, having been across a few. I think the questions that members will want to pin him down on as this debate goes on is, okay, do you still support this? But do you know what I mean? They're going to find a few wedge policies, whether it's on social security or immigration, or are you going to be passionate about this stuff?
I think that's the big irony. He's not very competent at all, and we've seen, due to his the way he carries himself in the media, that he's actually pretty unsure of himself a lot of the time, and that he's just happy to go along with the consensus of where where the right of the party will want to kind of direct him. I called them his handlers before, right? The real brains behind this shit is Morgan McSweeney. It's not really Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer is, as we've already mentioned in this segment, is not someone who really has some kind of idea of the ideology or the basic thrust of a kind of policy platform that he wants to put forward. He just, wants to tell people what they want to hear and gain power that way. Whereas Morgan McSweeney, there was the brains behind the ideological direction that's being pushed here, and he is firmly within Labour right. He is firmly part of the Mandelson clique. He is firmly somebody who should never ever have his grubby mitts anywhere near power. And that's where you really need to have a look to see where all of this policy is coming from and where all this stuff is coming from. When's this video from? This is from 3 years ago. This is during the leadership election.
Or are you just going to kind of go, and how he responds to it, not just what he says, but what his policies are. I think as well, you know, who's going to be your shadow chancellor? Because that tells you something about what your economic policy is going to be. Who's going to be your shadow home secretary? Because that tells you about how you're going to deal with an issue around immigration.
Yvette Cooper and Hilary Benn or something.
Well, that will tell members something if it is that. Because
but if it were that, but I suppose the problem is, and this is why, if you are, you know, in one of the other campaigns,
again, literally, I mean, got half of it right there with Yvette Cooper, but it was even worse than Hilary Benn. It was fucking Rachel Reeves.
Or especially Rebecca Long Bailey's campaign, because she's trying to prove that she is the left vote and that he's not, right? Well, she should be if she's not, because that's the way to win. Is that he will? It's you have quite a lot of executive power once you're elected to the position, and there's not that much pressure for you to say. Of course, you're going to say, "Well, I'm never going to throw immigrants under the bus," and of course, you're going to say, "I do want to nationalise the major utilities," and of course, you're going to say, "I'll never, you know, scapegoat benefit cheats," and I'd bet a fair amount of money that Keir Starmer's not going to commit to who his shadow chancellor is going to be before the polling day, because one, he'd say...
And then look where we are right now from the shit we've already watched today. Jonathan Ashworth talking about people on benefits in a negative fashion, right? Talking about immigration for the last how many weeks at this point in a negative light. Yvette Cooper come out with a statement demeaning immigrants, right? We're literally back at the controls and immigration, I'm voting Labour mug stage of the political discourse at this point. Everything that's being brought up here by Michael Walker is all stuff that has happened. They knew all the time. It's so prescient watching this back. It's infuriating watching this shit back. That these people knew what was going on, and it's been borne out with all of the stuff that's happened since, and it just doesn't even get properly scrutinised by the media at all. Or even the members of the Labour Party who just think, oh, it's all just principled Labour doing what they need to do because they can't because of the state of the economy. No, it's all lies. It's always been lies. It's always been a deliberate ploy to completely hoodwink people into this position. It's always been a lie. It's always been deceitful. And the people who are still defending Starmer to this day are they are having their wallets inspected just as much as the Corbynites were having their wallets inspected in 2019 and 2020.
No one's ever done this in the contest before. It would be inappropriate to do so, and he has no interest in doing so, because either he commits to a left winger who he thinks will be damaging in a general election, or he commits to a right winger, which is going to cost him votes. So if you need to find something on them basically to undermine their claim to be left wing, which is why I suppose really early on in the Jeremy Corbyn campaign in 2016, they pinned on Owen Smith that he had been a lobbyist for Pfizer. And that was like, this guy suddenly has no credibility. Also, he was just a terrible candidate. So he talked about a long penis.
And this is the same Owen Smith who was an advisor to Pfizer, who was in charge of Keir Starmer's leadership campaign. The roots go so deep, and it's so obvious now looking back. And again, plenty of people were not as informed in that time. I certainly wasn't as informed, Hanny Snow. And plenty of people in the Labour membership clearly weren't as informed. And, we can all look back on this and, be a little bit less trusting when these kind of things happen again. You can only learn from your mistakes, but because again, the real problem, we can talk about like actions we should have taken, ways in which that we were deceived and lied to by these people. But at the end of the day, the buck has to stop with Keir Starmer and the Labour right, where there was a deliberate project to try and deceive people, and it means that these people cannot be trusted. They cannot be trusted in power. They cannot be trusted with the power. They cannot be trusted to lead the party. And they cannot be trusted with the future of progressive politics. They cannot be trusted at all, in no sense of the word. And they've proven track record again and again and again and again of lies, of deceit, of ulterior motives, and of conflicting interests with the general party. They cannot be allowed to continue. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider liking and subscribing. It does help out the channel and the algorithm. And if you click the bell notification icon, it will let you know when I go live and when I upload videos. If you'd like to follow me on social media, my handle is @NoJusticeMTG, and that is Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. If you want to support my channel in a more financial manner, you can do so by becoming a member for just 99p, by super chatting, or by supporting me on Patreon, with the link is in the description of this video, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next segment.